Center, please stand by. We are about to begin. Good day, everyone, and welcome to this Quest Notes Migrator for Exchange product demonstration. Today's call is being recorded. At this time, I'd like to turn the call over to Dan Gautner. Please go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much, Kim, and thanks to all of you for joining today. My name is Dan Gautner. I'm the Product Marketing Manager for Quest Software's Lotus Notes Migration Solutions. Thanks again for joining us wherever you are in the world for our Notes Migrator for Exchange product demonstration. Today's title and theme is ensuring a zero-impact migration from Lotus Notes to Microsoft's new Exchange 2010 platform. I'll be going through a couple introduction slides just to kind of set the stage, and then I'll be turning it over to Carrie Woods in a few minutes, who's a solutions architect based in the UK, and she'll be going through a deep dive technical demonstration of the Quest tool that can facilitate the Notes to Exchange 2010 migration. Just a couple housekeeping items. As a reminder, we will be doing live Q&A at the end of today's session. Also, if for whatever reason you were unable to hear or view today's session, it will be recorded and available on demand at quest.com/notesdemos. If you're curious about our other Notes transition solutions, such as our coexistence tools or our Notes to SharePoint tool, you can also view demos of those products at quest.com/notesdemos as well. So first I wanted to provide an overview of Quest Software's Notes Migration Solution Set. So Quest Software offers a comprehensive set of solutions for migrating from Lotus Notes Mail, applications, and Lotus SameTime to the Microsoft stack, whether it's Exchange, SharePoint, the Business Productivity Online Suite, or Microsoft Office Communications Server. We have tools for pre-migration analysis. We have tools that help you coexist during prolonged migrations or scenarios such as a merger or acquisition. We also have tools that help you rebuild custom or complex Lotus Notes applications that don't fit as well in SharePoint. And then finally, once you get to the Microsoft stack, we have tools to help you manage, report on, analyze your environment going forward to help you get the most from your Microsoft investment. With Quest, we can help you migrate to Microsoft technologies with zero impact on your end users, with less risk, and with fewer resources than you thought possible. So the tool that we're going to show today, as I said, is Notes Migrator for Exchange. So it's a tool that provides either a batch, bulk, or an end-user-driven migration. It handles the directory, the mail, the calendars and tasks, the personal address books. We also have the ability to generate PSD files from NSF files, or you can move NSFs to the Exchange server. We have a tool for discovery and analysis called Quest Message Stats. Notes Migrator for Exchange can help you manage and automate your project, as well as provision user accounts. This tool, as I mentioned at the outset, does support Exchange 2010, or if you're going to the cloud-based environment, it does migrate to Exchange Online, part of BPOS as well. So what makes Quest Notes Migrator for Exchange different than some of the other tools on the market? As I said, it does include the ability to do a pre-migration analysis to control the scope of your migration as well as mitigate risk. It also automates administrative tasks to help simplify your migration, things like setting forwarding rules, creating local AD accounts, converting notes archives to PSTs, preserving access control lists. You can also facilitate a multi-threaded migration to reduce project timelines and complete your project faster than expected. We have an end-user migration option, which Carrie will talk about a little deeper. And then, as I said, with the Quest tool, you can migrate anywhere now and in the future, whether it's Exchange 2010, in Microsoft Cloud-based Business Productivity Online Suite, or BPOS, both the standard and the dedicated version. So Quest can handle it all. Just a little bit about who Quest is. A big part of migration is mitigating risk of downtime or data loss. I don't think that's any secret to those of you who are looking into it already. With Quest, you're getting a company that's been doing migrations for years. We've done a lot of them. We have some industry support to back it up, whether it's Microsoft Global ISV Partner of the Year Award in 2007, for the Notes Transition Partner of the Year Finalist Award just last year in 2009. We have a global partner network to help you deliver your project. We also have 24/7 technical support every day of the year. So different time zones, local languages to help you through your project. And as I mentioned, again, the experience factor. We've done 20 million migrations to Exchange, and we can also manage you going forward. Okay. With that, I wanted to turn it over to Carrie Woods for the technical demonstration. Carrie, please go ahead.
Thanks, Dan. Let me just share out the virtual machine and get everyone able to see it. So just bear with me for a second. Okay. All right. Well, hopefully everyone can see a Quest Notes Migrator for Exchange screen showing up on this session. Just a quick background and where I'm working with Quest and what I'm here to show you today. My background is a former Notes administrator and a customer of Quest, and now I'm a professional services consultant, so I go around and help people implement. So I understand the domino pain that most customers will feel, so we can talk about any questions that come up at the end of the session around domino and how you can challenge those challenges you'll have in migration. And I want to give you some background on what a migration console is, because this is what I'm going to be showing you and working on during this presentation. My virtual environment has an Exchange server in it, a Domino server, and a Quest console server. Essentially, it can be an XP or Windows Server 2003 workstation. And this has the Notes client on it, it has Outlook installed on it, and it has the Exchange tools installed. And then finally, we add the Quest software on top of this. And if you have an existing SQL server, we can put a SQL backend database for the Quest tool there, or you can also install something that we bundle in with a tool called SQL Express 2005. So the project information is stored in SQL, and we're able to add multiple migration consoles throughout your environment. So if you have a requirement to get a significant number of data over in a short amount of time, you may be looking at introducing multiple consoles in your environment. All these consoles can process concurrently. They are multi-threaded, so you have the ability to process dozens of mailboxes at the same time, but they're all sharing the same project. So the same project that you've set up on one console is visible through that SQL database and shares the same configuration amongst all consoles. So when we're accessing the Notes environment, the only way that we have in is through the Notes API. So we're not actually asking you to install Notes agents or any sort of agents into the Notes environment or into the Exchange environment. We're accessing Exchange via MAPI. So this is not a scary tool to implement into your environment, and relatively easy. I can go in and see a customer the beginning of the day, and by the end of the day, we're migrating mail data. So it's an easy tool to introduce into your environment. So as Dan said, this tool is focused on getting the data out of Notes, and we can process a variety of data. The mail-in databases, the mailboxes, the archives, the personal address books, resources, all these things have the capabilities of being migrated through this tool. So what I'm going to do is use the tool today to just orient you around. I'm just going to go through how you would configure the tool and finally give you a demonstration migration and then show you the self-service tool quickly towards the end of the migration. The self-service tool is a great utility that comes with it, gives you the ability to migrate everything with the same engine that the central migration tool uses, but the end users can actually drive this themselves. And it solves some interesting situations for customers. Some customers absolutely love to use it, and other customers think, well, you know, we want to process everything centrally. And certainly you can use both approaches, or you can mix and match the approaches. So let's get started. So what you're seeing here now is the project view, and the project view is basically showing you what we've extracted from the Notes name and address book into the SQL database. Some useful information here around users, resources, size of data you'll have to process as well. People are quite interested in how much that you've actually done as well. Licensing information, all this stuff is held within here. So this is a good way to have an overview of your project that you're running with the tool. Documentation always bundled in with it. If you do download the tool, I highly recommend that you read the Quick Start Guide, program parameters. We give you a lot of different customizations that you can do with this particular central migration tool in the self-service, and these are all very well documented in the program parameters. So I consider these must-reads if you are considering the tool. Quick Start Guide will give you in 2 or 3 pages everything that you need to know to get started to put this into your environment. So that's the #1 document I would recommend reading if you are interested. So when you're actually setting up the tool, we are asking for a SQL server. So one of the very first things that we're going to do after installation of this is we're going to say, where's the SQL server that we can create our database on and put all of our tables, and where can we do bulk inserts from? So that's just what we're specifying here. So if you're adding a second console, this is the only place that you need to get to have that console fully functional. As soon as you apply these settings at this level, the console is ready to go, ready to process on migration jobs. So we'll just keep going down through the configuration piece here. So essentially down till about here, find domains is what I consider configuration. Once you've done this one time, it's saved in SQL, you don't need to do it again. The activities from export notes directory and down to here are migration activities, and I'll go through those individually with you. So shared directories, we create log files for any activity that we've done within the tool. So if you're migrating mail data, we create a log file, and anything that is not able to be migrated, maybe due to corruption or perhaps an unknown form type, things like that are documented in the log file with the message ID, subject date and time, and reason why we can't migrate them. So if you have a requirement to know what happens in your migration, you can certainly get that from your migration logs. So every activity you do will create a log, and you can always go back and find those logs. And we are also installing an instance of the self-service tool. The SSDM is what we call it, Self-Service Desktop Migrator, and address translation tables. And what I mean by address translation tables is we take that domino canonical name and we switch it out to be an SMTP address on migration. Those messages that you receive in Exchange migrated after are replyable, and that's very important for users because we want the users to never know those messages originated in Lotus Notes. They should look like they were created in Exchange, be fully functional like they were created in Exchange, and that's what the address translation table provides for us, is that address translation from notes name to SMTP address. And finally, the people that are running self-service can write logs as well. So here's a location where the logs can be posted. So you want to know success, failure of those particular self-service desktop migrator sessions, and this is where it posts the logs, and the tool is able to ingest those centrally and do reporting on those in the SQL database. So if we just continue down through the configuration steps you would be required to do, we're going to specify Domino server here. This is a nearby Domino server that we can contact for directory information, and an administrative ID file, a manager ID file that we can have access to the Domino directory. And if we just save these settings, the tool won't prompt us for those in the future, so that can save you a little bit of time and effort. And now we're going to talk about the different Exchange permissions that you need with the tool. We use a split model here in this particular tool. There's a few different ways you can do this. But I just created a domain user here with a mailbox, and this is what I use to push the information into Exchange, giving it receive as permissions down the Exchange stores. So I've created a mailbox for this particular user and an Outlook profile for this particular user, and all we're doing is using MAPI to push this into Exchange. Now, we have a few different target Exchange server versions. From the migration process perspective and what you're seeing here today, it does not matter what version Exchange you're on, the process is still the same. The only difference you will see in a migration console is the relevant Exchange tools that you install for them. So with 2010, it's even easier. You don't even need to download the 32-bit versions of the Exchange management tools. You're just installing Windows Management Framework and enabling the migration user for remote management on the Exchange server. So even easier. But the process I give you here applies for all versions of Exchange and also BPOS migration. So we look at Active Directory as well. So Active Directory, we need an account that can that can actually manipulate accounts, mailbox enable, delete contacts, and create groups. So we need a little bit of permissions in Active Directory, and this is where we would specify those. If you have the desire to provision groups, so we can provision those for you as well, and we're just asking for an OU to put those in. And finally, if you have contact members in notes groups that don't actually have a person record, so maybe you have a joe@hotmail.com in your notes group, because this is something you can do in notes. In the Exchange world, you need to address this by creating a contact for them so you can add them to the group membership in Exchange. So we'll be able to mirror those changes in creating that contact in Exchange for you on the fly in group provisioning. And this is where we would just put those contacts. If you're in a user resource forest mode migration, we have the ability to do that as well. Very, very easy process I'm going through again. Again, doesn't change very much. All you're going to be doing is putting the user forest credentials there. Maybe we'll just be doing the associated external account on Mailbox Enable. So not much changes there. So a little bit more in configuration. We've identified the note server in this previous step. Now we want to go to that note server and say, can you please provide us the name and address book that you contain all the users in? Typically, this is the names NSF. Some organizations will have many here. So for our demo here today, we are going to take the names NSF, and I'm then going to commit this into the SQL database. So it will extract everything, put that into the SQL database, and I'll be able to drive the migration from those steps. From those names provided from there. Finally, we are able to generate aliases based on the global domain document, because in the notes world, notes doesn't always require exact name matching unless you turn it on, but in the Exchange world it does. So how will you capture those aliases that the global domain document's been providing for you in the notes world? And the way that we do this is we generate aliases in this Find Internet Domains wizard, and you can select anything that comes out of the global domain document here, and we can generate aliases, secondary SMTP addresses on Mailbox Enable. And that's what that is. Export Notes Directory is where we're finally taking the names NSF and dropping this into the SQL database. And you can see everything contained in here: users, resources, mail-in databases, groups, contacts. And we have the ability to manipulate anything that's in the SQL database by taking it out to a TSV. Maybe you want to change the SMTP address or specify a location for the personal address book. You can add this into a TSV file and import that into the SQL database. So you have full control over what is in SQL and can change it at any time. So at this point, we are now ready to look at the migration function. So anything above this piece, Find Domains, is a configuration. You do it once, you forget about it. Everything below, migration activities. So now let's talk about the migration activities that the tool can do. We have a concept in this tool called collections. We have group collections and user collections. And what these are groupings of users or groups that you will perform migration activities on. So group collections can only contain groups, and user collections can only contain users, mail-in databases, resources. So they are a little bit different in their functionality. So if we wanted to migrate a group, what we would do is we would actually create a collection for it first, and then we would be able to migrate this group over and creating the collection and then ultimately provisioning. So this is the first step and then the second step. And creating the collection and then provisioning the group is the second step. So if we wanted to provision the group, I'll show you what the wizard looks like. So this is the wizard that we use to provision groups. So they can go over any way that you'd like them to. Security distribution groups, we can specify the OU. We also have a limited ability to keep the groups in sync with corresponding notes groups. Note, this is not a two-way synchronization, just a one-way synchronization. So if you do need to change membership based on what the group membership changed to notes, we have that capability by running this wizard. So that's the group provisioning wizard. I am going to do a demonstration on the mail data, or migrating mail today. So finally, we go down to user collections, and we would create a collection for the users that we are interested in performing any migration activities on. So if you have the desire to mailbox enable someone, you would create a collection for this. And then you could use that same collection later on to set the forwarding on the notes mailbox and then potentially doing the data migration. So you are meant to reuse, recycle, and keep these collections, minimize the amount of work of preparation steps and migration. So we're going to create a collection today for our one test user that I'm going to show you. And this guy's name is going to be John Tyler. So I'm just going to search for this user. You could also bring things in by TSV import. We can also filter on criteria in the Domino directory too. So if you said, well, I want to migrate everyone with this value of Chicago and their department name, we can filter based on criteria in the Domino directory. And that's the way a lot of customers do this because they just couldn't be bothered with typing in names or creating TSV spreadsheets either. So I'm just going to find my user. Here he is. And I'm going to create this collection now. So we have April demo. This is a collection that we've just created. I can change this collection at any point in time. Membership can be completely different. So that's always something you'll be able to trace things back to the collection that people were in, and we always keep logs based on the collection as well. So you always have that accountability. So I want to show you what John looks like in the world here. John Tyler is my user that we're going to pick on today. So just bear with me for a second while I change machines. I'm going to switch over to my Exchange machine, unlock it, and then show you what he looks like. If I come to Exchange Management, this is Exchange 2007, but the process is essentially the same with 2010. In this case, I've used Transporter to synchronize contacts over. Now, we don't care from the tool perspective if you've created contacts with Transporter, you've manually created them, or you'll be using our directory synchronization, which will be available very soon to create contacts. The process is the same. So you have a contact and you have an Active Directory user, and now you need to consolidate those down into a single object, getting them ready for migration. So what we're going to do in this step is a process called object merge. So we take John here as a contact. Here he is. Let's just have a look at him. And if you didn't have contacts, you just skip this step. So what I'm doing here is showing you the most complex scenario you'll be in. And if you're just going straight to mailbox enable, hey, skip this step. Life is easy for you. So we have a Lotus Notes address here for him, a UID, some SMTP addresses, and he's got an external email address. So what we want to do is preserve this, the group membership, the legacy exchange at the end. So we need to do something called object merge. And I'm going to go through this quickly with you in the tool now. It's called merge contacts. And I'll talk about some other, this is migration preparation steps that you'll need to do for this user. So we're going to merge contacts, and I'm going to select the collection here. And John Tyler here, what I'm going to do is specify how I'm going to match him to between the two different directories, the Notes directory, Active Directory. We've got to marry those two objects together, and they are usually independent directories. So how I've chosen to do this is the SAM account name, and I know that in this particular instance, the contacts were loaded in the Active Directory by Transporter. If you have other methods, you can choose these here, or you'll see our directory connector available there as well. So if I just click Next, we'll see how John's world changes. What I'm doing here is consolidating him into a single object. His user object exists, he has a contact. Now he's going to go down into a single mail-enabled user, so that contact is deleted, but all the information is preserved on it. And we'll go and see what life looks like after this. But be aware, when he's mail-enabled, he's not yet a mailbox-enabled user, so there's an additional step that I have to do to make him fully ready for mailbox migration. So this is a preparation step that you do before the user actually migrates. So this will be just complete in just a second. VMs have slow amounts of memory, so in a production environment, this is a really fast thing to do. So this is completed, so let's go back into the Exchange world. Actually, we'll just refresh here. Sorry, I had not refreshed from a test earlier. So if we go down here, John Tyler, I'm going to refresh, and we should see now he is male and male user. He's male enabled. So things have changed slightly in the Active Directory world for him, but he has a single object. And if we go and look, we've preserved the notes address, UID. We've stamped additional addresses that we've specified in the tool and the recipient policy. But in his world, nothing's changed. He still has an external email address. Free Busy would still keep working, so everything from a coexistence perspective is happy with this step. You can't just delete objects. So if we go back just a moment here, and now we're going to create a mailbox for him, so a full-fledged mailbox, and we're going to set the forwarding on his Lotus Notes mailbox. So we've got a person record for him that looks like, oops, sorry, here it is, Joan Tyler. So this is what a normal Domino person record looks like. Note there's no forwarding address here. If we wanted to specify a calendar domain, that's not specified at this point in time. Foreign directory synchronization, we're still allowing this, so in this case, transporter is synchronizing it over. So we want to change him. We want to make him an active Exchange user. So the way that we're going to do this is we're going to come down to this very, very popular wizard that will be spending most of your time in here, migrate user data. And we're going to be creating the Exchange mailboxes. So the first thing we'll do is select the collection name. And what we want to do is mailbox enable existing Active Directory accounts and manage mail routing. And this is going to give you a sequence of wizards that will ask you where you want the mail to be delivered to. And we'll go through those. So what we want to look at now is where do we want to send the mail for this user. We want to make him an active Exchange user, so we'll leave that top option selected here. Our coexistence is going to be with, in this case, the transporter suite, but if you're using our coexistence tool, you're going to see an option available for that in a few weeks. Or if you're not doing any level of coexistence, you can simply select SMTP. And it just gives you defined rule sets on how the changes to the Domino directory should be performed. So these are grayed out because the tool is forcing me to enter a value here because it knows what is required for that level of coexistence. So it's not giving us any choice. If we need choice, you can always go back, change to SMTP, and then everything is flexible. Mail forwarding address options. How do I want to forward from the notes world into the Exchange world? And this is, in this case, I'm using a subdomain, exchange.winger.com or exchange.yourcompany.com. People can use single namespace here. It doesn't matter. Whatever works from your coexistence mail flow, you can specify here. So if I had previously created the mailbox for this particular user, he would have forwarding on Exchange. This would allow us to remove the forwarding address from his Exchange mailbox and then allow us to actually drop live mail in there. So you would only remove this if you had pre-staged his mailbox ahead of time. How contacts were loaded into Active Directory. This is just our hunting mechanism, so you can always change this to the other. Find user by SMTP address. I split, so now we're just waiting for the machine. When it's looking for the hunting pattern here, it looks either by notes name or SMTP address. So it's gone off to check to see that he actually exists as a user. And if he didn't, it would come back and tell you, look, I can't find this user, and here's why. So I'm sorry, it just went past the screen, so back off. So this is where it's actually checking the Exchange server credentials in the background as well, because in the previous configuration step that said, stop asking me for that information. So it's just going through that. Now it's asking me, where do you want to create the Exchange mailbox? And this is the location that I want to create for this particular user. Once you've created them, you can feel free to move them around. This is where we have multiple threads specified, and you can have concurrent migrations processing. And you can always schedule tasks. So you're going to see me hit next, next here probably a few times. But if I wanted to run this task on another computer, I certainly could from here, or schedule it to run at a later point in time, I could as well here. So this should be pretty quick. And then we'll go and look and see the changes that have happened. So what we're doing here is we're going to be taking him from a mail-enabled status to mailbox-enabled status, and we are going to be setting the forward on the notes person record for him. So he's now an active Exchange user, and the next thing that will follow is the data. And you do want to set the forwarding in the notes world before you ever do the data, because you could always miss messages if you do the forwarding after you start the data migration. So that's why we go in the sequence. So let's look and see from the Exchange perspective. I will refresh, and he disappears there. He's showing up here as a full-fledged user. Let's just have a look at him. And he's preserved the notes address here. And if you were to go and look at things like Legacy Exchange, group membership, that would still be the same as well. Let's go to the notes perspective and just look at him. So if we look at his person records, things have changed for him pretty significantly. And if we go to look at miscellaneous, we've specified the calendar domain, and this is required for coexistence. And then we have disabled foreign directory synchronization. So things have changed for that user, and he's an active Exchange user. So now the last piece of the puzzle is the data. So you want to come back here, migrate his user data, come back to the same wizard. We're done with these two functions. So we're going to follow up with his data. And you can run data in passes. Maybe a week ahead of time you run a pass to get the bulk of the data over, and then the night of migration you can come back through and run the differential amount of data. This is always possible. There's a lot of flexibility with this tool. So we now have the ability to send out a "You've been migrated to notes" and "Welcome to Exchange" message. These are very, very handy to send out because, you know, users are always confused, so good to have. So we'll just specify those. Those are HTML templates that you can customize, put training data, all kinds of things like that in there. Migrate mail data, this is what I'm going to be doing. And if I have contacts stored in the iNotes store, I can migrate those from there. And I'll go through some different options with the personal address book with you. There's about 3 ways to get to the personal address book with the tool. So NDLs, I'm going to carry those over. Document links, I'm going to carry those over as NDLs. And we always have the ability to migrate through the file system as well. So if you have servers that are remote, you can just copy the NSF to an external disk, hook them into the console, and we can migrate those straight off of this external disk into the Exchange mailbox if you wish. Very fast to do it that way. Always have the ability to migrate stuff into the server or into a PST, so this is just where you have the ability to make that selection. And then we have date filtering. So this can be very handy if you only want to take maybe the last 90 days worth of data, or if you want to do filtering for an archiving system that you have in place. If you want to prune attachments as well, we have the ability to prune them all together or simply take them off based on size. Now I'm just validating the Exchange mailbox exists. And the migration threads, again, if I wanted to bump those up and have more processing power, I could. This is allowing me to schedule it. And what we'll see here is it just pauses for a minute, initializes, and should move through the migration very quickly. And what it's doing here is it's actually processing and creating the messages on the console. So all the work is done across the console. So you don't have to worry about PST files being shipped across the network or anything like that, because we're reading a few messages and inserting them into Exchange via MAPI and cleaning up the work right immediately after it's been performed. So there's no data held anywhere else. It's just in a temporary state and cleaned up. So we'll see the messages. And you're always going to see errors and warnings in migrations. And this is simply because there are things that exist in Notes that don't exist in Exchange. So what we do is we give you a nice warning and tell you why. There are form types that do not exist in Exchange. We give you examples of meeting counter response documents in the Notes that don't exist in Exchange. So that's normal to see errors and warnings. So I always encourage customers to look at them, and they will see a normal trend of users to have for errors and warnings. So if I just carry on, and I'll show you what the mailbox looks like before. So if I come back to my Notes workspace, open John's mailbox, this is what his mailbox looked like before. Now what I'm going to do is just create a quick Outlook profile for you and let you see the migrated mailbox. So the things that we're worried about on migration is preserving unread marks, preserving folder structure, preserving attachments, preserving fidelity of messages, preserving replyability, delegation. So these are the things why you would be looking to buy a third-party tool for migration. And just what I want to show you what a migrated mailbox looks like. So from his perspective, he should go into this mailbox and his world should be normal. We're going to see it as takes a second to cache down. But he did have a folder here, so we have carried over the folder structure. And it will come down in just a moment as it's caching. This is our welcome to Exchange message. So you can see he's got some messages in here. So there's some unread messages and read messages in here. He's got messages with attachments that we'll go in and look at. Here's an attachment that migrated over. And if we go and look for one that has a lot of people on it, we can see that the messages are replyable. Let me just find a good one. Here's a good one. There's a lot of people that we've actually done address translation for, and we've resolved these into being an SMTP address. So if you click reply, everything will work, except for the odd user here, because he's no longer in the notes directory, he's no longer in Exchange. That's normal. We'll see things like that. So everything from his perspective, he should be able to reply. This should look normal. Calendar messages as well. Calendar. If he's got things in the calendar as a reoccurring series, we'll bring those over as a reoccurring series. So here is the migrated message, and we preserve the reoccurrence. Also, custom meeting patterns and notes. They don't exist in Exchange, but we will migrate these. So this is a custom meeting pattern and notes. We've carried this over. So that's what a calendar will look like on a migration. So these are the important things that you're going to want to talk to your customers about, or if you are a customer, deciding with the business about. So if I just return back to the migration console again, I'm just going to show you just a few quick more things, and then we'll conclude the demo. The personal address book, you have the capability of sending out a wizard ahead of time that will send a button to the user and allow the user to synchronize up to the contact store in the mail file, or we have the choice to be able to to replicate that personal address book up to a Domino server of your choice. It's a central location, and then we can migrate it centrally. But if you're thinking, well, I don't actually want my user to do this, let that be their problem, this is where we can introduce the self-service tool that we've talked about before. So if I go and look at that self-service tool that I've created in this step, this gives us the full capability of migration, of doing mail files, of doing archives, of doing personal address books, but from the end user workstation. So this can solve lots of interesting problems around rights and permissions. Maybe you couldn't be bothered to collect those archives up centrally. So this is an interesting thing that many, many customers really love about the tool. So full migration capabilities, which uses their own Outlook, uses their own Lotus Notes credentials to do the migration. So you would be doing the administrative functions like creating mailboxes and then allowing them to do the data portion of it. I'm just going to run through and show you what this looks like. And you can control the behavior of this really well through the INI file. And that's all documented. The changes are documented in the parameters guide that I referenced earlier. So if you come in here, it tells you, in this case, I've customized it. So I only want to look at personal address books and archives. tells me where they are set to be migrated to. Contacts will, for those, will go to my Exchange mailbox, and archives will be converted into a PSD for use in Outlook. And this is great because it also gives the user a shortcut for their PSD file too, so that you don't have to tell them how to open it. And I can put all those things to Exchange if I wanted to as well. I can also process archives and personal address books centrally, so it's up to you. So these are the things that I can choose for migration as well, if I wanted to include trash folder encrypted messages. Asking me for the notes password here, because it's reading the notes INI file, so it finds all the stuff automatically for you. Finally, we've got the administrator's address book, so this has some contacts in for us. It's found the archive. You can specify a path here if they were in different locations. And because I have lots of different profiles selected here, I'm just going to select the one that I've already created for you in the last step. If you didn't have one, it wouldn't prompt you for that. And then the PST directory that I'm going to create this archive in. And then the summary, and this will be over very, very quickly. That's migrated it. So if I go back and I look at this profile for John here, I can now see his archive has been introduced into the mailbox. So not much in it, just wanted to show you from a demonstration purposes. And if he has contacts, we could see these here. Unfortunately, I've duplicated them because I just ran 2 independent migrations. So you'll see the contacts that we've migrated centrally and then the self-service tool. Normally this wouldn't happen because you wouldn't be running this twice, but we have migrated these over. And if we do look at the group that we have migrated, he's got an external contact. He's got members here as well that he's created. So we've carried over the personal groups and the personal contacts for that particular user. So from my perspective today, that's what I wanted to show you from Notes Migrator for Exchange, in addition to the self-service tool that's bundled in with it. So I'll turn it over to Dan, and we can take any questions now.
Thanks very much, Carrie. Excuse me. And Kim, we'll take Q&A at this time.
Thank you. To ask a question, please press *1 on your telephone keypad. A voice prompt on your phone line will indicate when your line is open to ask your question. Please state your name before posing your question. Once again, if you have a question today, please press *1. And I do have a question. I'll open that line.
Okay.
Yes, hi, this is Dominic Petrino with URS Corporation. If I understand correctly, when you do the migration to the Exchange server, all of the notes, mail, and everything stays intact on the Domino server. Is that correct? I'm not a notes guy, so I'm just...
Yeah. We're essentially just doing a read-only copy.
Okay.
So it's non-destructive. So if you wanted to do testing, right, you could run tests 10, 12 times, doesn't matter. Nothing from the user perspective changes. So notes admins aren't very scared by this process.
Okay, and if, I understand we're going to have some errors and warnings because of, things that don't map to Exchange. If there was a message that was corrupt or something like that, I would have the ability maybe to forward or do the SSDM migration of that particular mail, or mail it to somebody else. I guess what I'm looking at is I can still preserve that notes email and get it to Exchange somehow, right? Because it would still be in this read-only format through a notes client.
Let's say you had a mail message that was corrupt in notes. If you can't see it in notes, then you can't migrate it, right? So if you can solve the problem in notes and fix that corruption, and then you can rerun the migration.
Okay.
So we always go back to the source. If there's something you can't migrate with the tool, open it on the notes client. Can you see it? If yes, then you should be able to migrate it. If no, then you need to fix it at the source.
Perfect. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Once again, it is *1 if you have a question today. And I do have another question. I'll open that line.
Okay.
Is this open to me?
Yes.
Oh, hi, this is Nate. Could you go over the Domino documents that would need configuration, such as foreign domain document, foreign SMTP documents, and so forth?
From a migration tool perspective, we expect that you've already established coexistence mail routing between the two systems. So the tool isn't dependent on that as far as you having to do that as a prerequisite step. That's an assumed step. So if you were doing mail routing between the two systems, you typically will add, if you're going to use subdomains, you can use a single namespace. You can add the, let's say, notes.yourcompany.com into your global domain document, and you would add a foreign SMTP domain document to notes to specify exchange at yourcompany.com for that subdomain going over there. So it's pretty easy to get going. And from the Exchange perspective, you would just need a SYN connector and make Exchange authoritative over the relevant domains as well.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And I have no further questions at this time, but I would like to remind everyone it is *1 if you have a question.
And Carrie, it looks like we have one question in the live meeting console, if you can see it. So the question for the audience is, how does the more complex rich data such as tables and embedded images convert using the Notes Migrator for Exchange tool?
You will get embedded images, that I'm certain of. Tables, I'm pretty sure you're fine. You won't get things like the tabbed. There's the ability to do tabs within a notes body of a document. We can't preserve things like that, but the other ones we can. What I would recommend is you actually just download the tool, load a couple messages up with all the rich text elements that you're worried about, and that's the way to see it. And I have many customers who will do this. So your underscores, your bolds, the embedded images, embedded attachments, all that sort of things, those things will come over. And the little things that you're worried about, maybe the underscores, strike-throughs, things like that, load them up and then test them out that way.
Thanks. And I will add, I guess, at this time, if you're implementing a coexistence solution, the Quest Coexistence Manager for Notes tool just finished up with a beta program of a new feature that we call Active Mail, and this preserves things like the advanced formatting or live notes content, such as tab tables or collapsible sections, encryption, hotspots, buttons. So we preserve that during the coexistence scenario. That's a new feature that will just finish beta and will come out in the May timeframe. Okay. Well, thanks a lot, Carrie, for answering those questions. Just wanted to conclude this demonstration with some final remarks.
Pardon the interruption. I do have another question.
Okay.
Are you able to take that?
Yes, we are.
Okay, thank you. I apologize. Here you go. I'll open that line.
Hello, this is Vijay from Michael, and I just want to know, how to deploy this tool in terms of configuration and all.
From a configuration perspective, in the beginning I talked about what a console is. So that's
configuration is fine. So how to deploy this tool in a for migration purpose, like what is the prerequisites and all to install this Quest software, all that information where I can get.
If you look on our support website, we have a bunch of documents related to best practice guides, different migration scenarios that you can be involved in, some recordings of actual migrations as well. So I would start there for resources.
Okay, is these documents available with the software with the software bundle, or
no,
is it available in the?
You would need to go.
Sorry.
You would need to go to the support website to download it.
Because I searched for this, I didn't get, so that's the reason so I was
check the
desperately looking for that
section on the Quest website, or you can always ring up Quest support and just ask for the best practice document. So if you're having any problems finding it out there.
Okay, fine, thank you.
And there are no further questions at this time.
Okay. So thanks again, everyone, for the great questions. Just wanted to close with a few final remarks. There's a number of ways to contact us. If you want to email us, you can email us at sales@quest.com. You can download a free trial copy of Notes Migrator for Exchange, or get access to related materials, documentation, white papers, the data sheet at quest.com/notesmigration. You can also view today's demo as well as other on-demand demonstrations at quest.com/notesdemos. I did also put a PDF version of the slide deck in the upper right-hand corner You can kind of see the handout section in the upper right-hand corner of your live meeting client. You can pull it on the slides. And as a final remark, I wanted to note that I know Carrie talked about the use of Microsoft Transporter. Obviously, with Exchange 2010, Transporter is unsupported by Microsoft. Quest today just released a new version. Well, it will be releasing a new version on April 28th of Coexistence Manager, which will preserve free busy lookups, which was one of the features provided by Transporter. And then we'll be providing directory synchronization, or GalSync, if you want to call it that, later in the Q2 timeframe. So just some final remarks there. With that, I thank everyone for joining today. Carrie, thanks for the great demo and the Q&A. And again, if you need to contact us, quest.com/notesmigration. Thanks a lot, everyone. Have a great rest of the day.
That does conclude our conference call today. Thank you all for your participation.